The Sikh Research Institute's mission is to provide educational resources to Sikhs to lead a Guru-inspired life. As a global nonprofit organization, we produce online courses, research papers, videos, podcasts, events, and books to create the largest go-to source of Sikh knowledge online. This class will begin with a 40-minute lecture, followed by 15 to 20 minutes for Q&A. So please drop your question in the chat box and be sure to include your name and your city. Now, I would like to introduce you to our instructor. Surinder Pal Singh is a researcher in Sikh studies. He works at the Sikh Research Institute, where he develops curriculum, presentations, and research papers on Sikh history and culture. He is the lead instructor of Gurbani 101 Track at Civic, an annual leadership program by Sikri. I'm sure many of you are familiar with him. Please welcome Surinder Pal.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to the 5th week of Anand Sahib's live online courses. We're going to cover Pauri 15, 16, 17, and 18 today. Before we do that, we'll quickly go through the major learnings from the previous week. So we covered Pauri 11, 12, 13, and 14 last week, and we'll briefly go through them and see what we learned there. So in Pauri 11, we learned that the family and friends that we see around us, none of them is like permanent. Our relationship with them is not permanent. Nobody arrived in this world with us and we came alone. And similarly, we will leave alone. No one will depart with us. No one will stand next to us. When we will be basically, the idea is that we will be responsible for our own actions. We'll have to take ownership of that, nobody else. And the question then arises is, if they're not them, then who else? Who is our real friend? And the same Pauri had answered that in the second or third line, that it's the Guru's wisdom, Guru's Sabbath, the Guru who is our permanent friend. And once we enshrine the Guru in our heart, Guru wisdom in our heart, that will support us, stand with us, stand by us in the moment of our quote-unquote judgment, if and when it happens, which for a Sikh is every day, here and now. So in Pauri 12, Agam Agochara Tera Antuna Paya, we learned that we should not try to quote unquote, understand the divine, who's basically vast, limitless and beyond our scope of understanding, our scope of our mental faculties, who can only be felt, not understood. So, many religious folks are doing that, just that either out of ego or because of different motives to, for money, power, fame, or just to, just for the sake of, flexing their intellectual muscles. But essentially, those are not the signs of a lover. How does a lover behave? Lovers are, away from the glitter of the world, and they are only concerned with the love of their life, the one and only love, which is the divine. And they try to feel the divine presence all around, everywhere, every time, every moment, and they see divine in everything. That's how lovers behave. In Pauri 13, we learned that idea of Amrit came. Sur nar munjan Amrit khojde. So Amrit gurte paya. Everyone is after Amrit. Everyone wants to stay, eternally. They don't want to die. Everyone wants to be immortal. And the Pauri told us that, immortality is about awareness of Ekankar. Immortality is in merger with Ekankar, in union with Ekankar. It is becoming divine-like. When we become divine-like and we unite with the divine, the eternal divine, that's how, and that's when we also become the, just like the rivers flow to the ocean and meet the ocean and they become ocean themselves. That's how we are supposed to become divine-like, and then in that union, eternal union, be eternal. That's our understanding of immortality. You know, there is no immortality in separation, ego, arrogance. Immortality for us is union. When that is there, we have become immortal, because essentially that Amrit is within us. It's the idea. It's the question of whether we are connecting with it, whether we have realized that. In Pauri 14, we discussed, Bhagata ki chal ran. We saw how the lovers of Ekankar behave. We learned that their lifestyle is nirala. It's unique and it's different. Their perspective is very different from the world. And what are the other things that they, and probably they're signs of their love. They give up greed. They don't have ego issues. They don't have desires, and they speak less. Their hopes, Harivasana Samani, badi galai si the second last line. Their hopes, their desires, they merge with Ekankar. Or the other way to say it is that their only hope or desire is Ekankar. That's how their style or their lifestyle, their perspectives become. And that's how they actually become Ekankar like. And that's how their style becomes Nirala, which is unique in the sense that it's intuitive, it's love born. They're in love. Nobody teaches them anything. They intuitively know what's the right way for doing things. With that, we'll start Pauri 15. So we just visited, Pauri 14, that was discussing the lifestyle and perspectives of the lovers. Pauri 15 is essentially an extension of that idea. It further elaborates for Pauri 14, and it says, "You tu chala te chala swami, horu kya jana gun tere." "You tu chala," as you make those lovers walk. "Tiv chala," "O Swami, O Master," "Tiv chala," so do they walk. "Or kya jana gun tere," what else do I know of your virtues? All I know is that you are their focus and you basically direct their lives, or your love basically directs their lives. That's how they intuitively walk on that path. Jivtu, emphasis, repetition. Jivtu chala eh, tiva chala. Jina maragi pavahe. Jivtu chala eh, tiva chala. As you make them walk. So tiva chala, sorry. So do they walk. But who? The one reminder is Jina Marg Pave, whom you grace and place on the path. Marg. Only those actually walk. So the element of grace is very central in Sikh idea, Sikh perspective of life. So essentially, once a person is in tune with the divine and more concerned about pleasing only the divine, they walk as per the Guru's instruction. They walk on the path shown by the Guru. Their ways, their perspectives change, their lifestyle becomes intuitive. This is Sahaj. And when you do not have to consciously choose the right path, but the right path is itself is your habit, your second nature, or in the words of the current passage, the divine guides you. Intuitively, you do what's right, and that's how that Sahaj enters your life, or that's a manifestation of that Sahaj. Next line says, Kari Kirpa, Jine Naami Laihi. By bestowing Kari Kirpa, by bestowing grace, Jine Naam Laihi, whom ek Onkar Laihi attaches Nami. to the Naam. See, those Hari Hari Sadate Avahe, they always, remember Hari Hari, the reliever of pain, the reliever of suffering. Such individuals live in awareness and, remembrance. Their every move is, informed by that awareness. They consume less, they speak less, not out of any sort of compulsion. They're not holding back basically, but because their taste has changed, they no more find material things or word around them, appealing or tasty. What really appeals them is, uh, you know, the divine love. We talk so much about carbon footprint these days. What is essentially that? It's an individual's craving or tendency to find pleasure outside different avenues of otherwise life requires very few resources. Most of this thing is related to our craving for pleasure, different kinds of pleasures, and we go out to seek those pleasures, and in that uh, you know thing of going out and seeking pleasure, we indulge in material things, and that's how we are basically turning this earth or planet into trash. Basically, their material footprint is very small. It's minuscule. In today's world, we just call it carbon footprint. That's what it is. So that's how they become different, not out of compulsion or force, forced compulsion, but because they love Ikankar and they find pleasure from within, not outside. जिसनो कथा सुनाई आपनी सी गुरुद्वारा सुख पावे. जिसनो कथा sunahi apni. So katha, the idea of that katha comes again. Those whom the divine graces and offers that opportunity, or offers that feeling of presence of nearness, where you are constantly singing the praises katha of the divine. See gurdware sukh pavahe. Those are the ones, only they, whom you actually recite your katha, or you give that katha or grace, so that they actually sing that praise. Se Gurdwara Sukh Pavahe. They only find happiness in the ways prescribed by the Guru. So if you notice the spellings of Gurdwara here, uh, in the Guru Granth Sahib, you'll notice that it is different from how we usually pronounce it. Usually, we pronounce it as Gurdwara, with an understanding that it only means the door of the Guru. But there is another interpretation of the word. We will also discuss the word in the next slide as a vocabulary. But the word essentially says through the Guru. Guru plus Dwara. Through. So here, Guru as wisdom becomes an experience, a path. So the Sikhs who live the experience of the Guru's wisdom, they find that happiness. That's what the line is saying. Hai Nanak, Sache Sahib, you pave, Vachalav. Hai Nanak, Nanak says, Sache Sahib, O eternal master, Sahib, you pave, as you will, Vachalav. So do you make them walk. That's how the lovers, live their life. Basically, the lovers are only concerned about their beloved and nothing else. So as I discussed, so Gurdwara is basically, most of the times we treat it as noun, which is like Guru's house or Guru's court or Guru's door, Guru Da Dwara. But another way of looking at it, even dictionaries give it, is through the Guru. Then in that sense, Gurdwara becomes an adverb. Now, Gurdwara in that sense becomes an action. Not only does it become an action, it gives you a perspective of, an active relationship. So what's happening here is that, if you look at this line carefully, Gurudwara Hoye Soji Paisi. Gurudwara, this idea of, Hoye comes from Hona, which means, to happen or to become or being. So the idea is that Soji awareness is in being or becoming, wisdom oriented and living the experience of life of wisdom. So in this sense, Guru Dwara doesn't become a specific space where you go and quote unquote worship, you know, but where you go or to seek bounties, material things, you do ardas for things. But in this sense, Gurdwara becomes an experience that you live, that you act upon, you enshrine within you. So that's a very different understanding of it. Although it's used traditionally in both senses. Something to think about. So what is the lesson in this body? One thing that comes out of this body is that once you are in tune, you do not have to make calculated effort. Your moves aren't really calculated in the sense, what do I have to do now? It's basically your love that you become an embodiment of. You become divine life. Sag enters your life, and in that equipoise, that you know, intuitive poise, you do what's right. You don't have to think about it because it has become your nature. You're not pretending anything anymore. So uh, that's how Guru's wisdom changes your perspective or your life. Next, actually, before we go into the next body, we'll cover the two vocabulary words that appear in it beforehand. So first is Sohila. So what is Sohila? It means praise or glory. At most of the places in Guru Granth Sahib, it means song of praise or simply praise. More specifically, Guru Sabad, because that song brings happiness and comfort. But at places, it also is interpreted as song of bliss, because it is the source. The Guru Sabad is the source of happiness or that bliss. So most of us have heard this word specifically in the Sohila. Recognize Tum gavahu mere nirpau ka Sohila. See how beautifully it's presented. No name used here. Sing the praise, praise song of my fearless beloved. My fearless beloved is it's implied there, that my fearless. ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮੇਰਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਭਉ ਤੋਂ ਰਹਿਤ ਹੈਗਾ, ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ master ਹੈਗਾ, sing praises of that fearless one. How worry, I sacrifice myself on that praise song of praise. Jit Sohila, by singing which song of praise, Sada Sukhoy, which brings eternal peace, eternal comfort. How beautifully presented. So that's the idea of Sohila. Praise, glory, places, song of bliss, which is by virtue of praising the divine. The other word is Turahu. This is another word quite common in Granth Sahib. Its word stem is tur. It's again an adverb, and tur literally means two things. It means an axis or the center of a thing, just like the axis of a wheel, and the other is the origin or beginning. In both senses, it means that Ek Onkar is either the center of the creation, or the idea that it's the Akal Purkh, nothing else. And the other is that Akal Purkh is the source of the creation. Everything is coming from Akal Purkh, or everything is Akal Purkh, Ek Onkar. But more specifically, literally speaking, when Puraho word is used, the connotation that arises is that Gurbani is referring to the Akal Purkh's Ek Onkar's core. So that's what it means. So, Jin Harjan Sadgur Sangati Pai Tentur Mustak Likha Likha. Again, you read this line in Hera Sahib. Those servants of the reliever Hari have found the company of the eternal wisdom, the Guru. Sangat Pali, Jinan, eternal Guru di. Tentori mastak likha likhas. Those are the ones on whose forehead that likhas, writ, has been likhya, inscribed on the forehead. The idea of grace, conveyed in a, different way. But that's essentially an idea of grace. It's grace. Those who have grace upon them, on whom Akal Purkh has bestowed grace, they are the ones who basically, connect with the religion. Okay, with that, we'll do Pauri 16. So in the previous couple of Pauris, we delved on the ways of the devotees, how they behave, and what is their focus, etc. This Pauri is, focusing on what is possibly the support of such devotees. Where do they obtain bliss from? And it answers uh, what that source of happiness is. It says, it picks from the previous one. Eh Sohila, the idea of sabad. It's, juxtaposing it with sabad, Sohila, that the sabad is this actual Sohila, Guru sabad. So, eh Sohila, sabdu sahava. Eh, this Sohila, song of happiness or praise, is sohava, pleasing or beautiful. The sabad is the beautiful song of happiness. This is the source of happiness for the lovers, the devotees. Sabdo Sohava Sada Sohila. Again, the emphasis. This Sabad, beautiful Sabad, Sohava Sabad, is the everlasting Sada, everlasting song of happiness. And where do we get it from? What is its source? Satiguru Sunaya. It has been told by the eternal Guru, true Guru. Guru is the source of this pleasing song of happiness, and it is the Sabad, as the line itself claims. इह तिनका मनी वसिया जिंतु रहु लिखिया आया. इह तिनका mani vasya. Even though the Guru is giving the wisdom of Shabad to everyone, but this Sabad is enshrined in the minds of only those tinka. This tinka, in those people's mani vasya, mind, uh, enshrined in the mind. तो Rahu likhya aaya, who have it written from the beginning, from the origin. We discovered this. So Rahu likhya aaya. It the other way to interpret is grace. That those who have grace upon them, they have actually understood or have enshrined the Guru's sabad within. Ik phir hai kanere, and then in contrast to those, what's happening? There are many phir hai. Ik, some. Phir wander, kanere, a lot, uh, you know, kare galla. And what do they do while wandering? They babble, they talk, they chatter. Galli kinana paya. But the issue is no one has really obtained or received the understanding or connected with the Kalpruk through babbling. This may possibly be referring to the religious leaders, religious preachers, posters, cult leaders who run their shops on the back of their physical charisma, and they claim to know or put things in rosy words to attract followers. Power, money, wealth is the real motive. Because they have no real connection, their explaining of quote unquote mysteries of lives are nothing but babbling. It actually has no weight, and their followers just listen to it in rapt attention, and they are as ignorant as their own leader, and nothing comes out of it. And what happens is, as a result of that, many, they just keep wandering around, just trying to convince themselves that they have understood it, that idea because there is no sahaj, and they just try to fool themselves believing that they're feeling it, but they actually don't feel it because they're only connected, or the relationship is very superficial, and it's only at the level of talks, lip service basically. And it has not transformed their life. There's no real transformation, because the actual yardstick is if my life hasn't changed, the love hasn't really transformed me. It isn't really forcing me, or better word would be would be to, if it's not inspiring me to do anything, it's not inspiring me enough to change myself when I know that my current lifestyle is not right, then there's problem. I'm at the stage of kareh galla. I'm just talking. I'm doing lip service. And in that stage, kareh galla, what happens when I'm at that stage? Gali kenana paiye. Just remember, by just talking, nobody has found or met Ikonka. Next line says, Guru Sahib ends, Kaha Nanak. Nanak says, Sabad Sohila. Sabad is the beautiful song of happiness. And it is the Sadguru, the eternal Guru, who has told this, recited this to me. See how beautiful it is. All right. So the Pauri essentially tells us that, if we seek happiness or bliss, we need to know that the source of that bliss is Guru's Sabad, nothing else. People all around talk, but there is no, possible real connection, because that lifestyle is missing, because there's no real transformation. You don't see that actually, happening. Which is why, by the way, is very accessible, Guru Shabad, but it's not like a mantra which, many people, give to their followers, like to their exclusive club of followers, but it's openly proclaimed by the Guru and offered to all, but only a few, reflect on it in the divine grace. And this Sabbath becomes, the source of equipoise in their life. Essentially, the way to bliss only goes through that Guru experiencing of, acting upon the Guru's instructions. When that happens, when there's transformation, there's action, that is when that bliss is experienced. There is no clever solution, and there's no shortcut. Next, we go to Pauri 17. There's a very new idea, like we had ideas of Amrit, immortality, and other things coming, and we now have a new topic that's also very closely related to the idea of being spiritual, being religious, the idea of religiosity. And that idea is of purity. It's very dominant in pretty much all the faith traditions across the globe. And all religious people are obsessed with the idea of purity. And everyone wants to become pure, and some set, certain type of criterias which are possibly irrelevant to your spiritual experience, or any sort of experience to a genuine seeker. So this body tells us who is essentially, everyone's talking about purity. Let me tell you who is pure and what makes one pure. What are the actions that make a person pure? First line says, Pavitra hoye se jana jini harityaya. Se jana, those individuals, pavitra hoye, became pure, have become pure, pavit, excuse me, jini harityaya, who remembered Hari, the all reliever, the idea that who have continued to engage, who have continued to live in remembrance of awareness of Hari. Those individuals have become. So what is the definition that is being offered for purity? It is the connection and the remembrance of the divine. If I live in awareness, I am pure. If I forget, and if I live in ignorance, I'm not. That's the idea. That's the idea of purity and impurity in Gurbani. One becomes pure by connecting to the source, the divine, and there is no other criteria. This idea is echoed, and daily in Asakiwar you will hear this. There's so many shabads, but one particular line that comes to my mind is Kahu Nanak Sach Tyaiya. O Nanak, say, remember the eternal truth. Connect with the eternal. such hove ta. But remember that purity that everyone is talking about or claiming, that comes only such paiye when there is a connection with the truth. When there's a connection with the truth, that's when, you know, such andi. That's when real purity comes in life. So, many of us overly obsess about bodily cleansing, and this is, in many ways negatively affecting our, worldview or understanding of Sikhi, not just Sikhi, but worldview and how we actually interact with so many people. Because most of the times, this idea of filthiness, impurity is also somehow related to those classes of people who are sort of impoverished or persecuted or oppressed. And that creates a very different uh, set of norms for us, which are definitely not in consonance with the ideals of Sikhi. So we have to be very careful uh, about these things. Next line says, Harite aya pavit hoye gurmukh jinite aya. Harite aya, divine remembered, and thus the lovers became pure. Only when Harite aya, in the last line, Harite aya, the last line ended with the Harite aya. It has been turned around. Pavitra hoye sejana jin Harite aya. Those individuals became pure who remembered Harite aya. Now it's the other way. Harite aya, pavitra hoye. When the divine was remembered, then thus, pavitra hoye, we became pure. Gurmukhi jinite aya. Then there's a criteria added here. Who? Those, who through Guru orientedness remembered the divine. So Gurmukh, is made of two words, Gur and Mukhi. Gur is Guru and Mukh means face. Essentially, it means that, being Guru faced, Guru oriented, Guru word, Guru centered, that kind of idea that my life revolves around, my focus is basically Guru's message. I live my life in accordance with what Guru tells me. That's the idea. So there are two ways this word is used. One as a noun, where it refers to a person who is Guru oriented or Guru faced, who lives a life based on Guru's instruction. The other way this word is used as a quality of being Guru oriented, the quality or state of being or the act of being Guru oriented. That's how this word is used. So those who connected with the Kaum and thus became pure, they did so essentially by following the Guru's instruction. I assume there's a lag in the internet connection, so I'll wait for a couple of seconds.
Sunderbal, there was a lag, but you're all good now.
Okay, all right. So the next line says, Pavit, it adds more goodies to it. It says, not only did that person became pure who connected with the Kalpurk, Pavit Mata Pita Kutamb Sahit Syo Pavit Sangati Subaiya. They are pure along with their Mata, mother, Pita, father, Kutamb. Kutamb is a word that's used for extended family. All those individuals, or everyone who came in contact with such people who are in love, they were also transformed. Sabaya. Sabaya is all. And if you notice, Kutamba Sahit Syo. Sahit and Syo both mean the same thing, with or along. So it's a poetic style it's a poetically a very creative style of presenting it. Pavit Mata Pita Kutamb Sahit Syo. With these all folks, everyone became pure. Whoever came in contact with such lovers. Pavit Sangati Sabaya. Everyone within that company of within the company of that individual became pure. That's the idea. So this idea of sangat is also coming here. Whoever connects with divine, they have such an aura because of their intuitive lifestyle. They are basically transformed. That they have the power to transform anyone who comes in contact with them. you will actually notice in life that people who actually exhibit those qualities, their personality is very charismatic. It's very soothing. And just the presence of such people, you know, really affects you in a positive manner. So that's what saying Gurbani is saying that Sangat is very important. Those who actually do Sangat of such people, who are in company of such people, they also are fortunate enough to get influenced in a positive manner and transform. That's the beauty of Sangat. Kahande pavit, sunde pavit, all those are pure, you know, who kahde, speak of, sunde, listen to, say pavit jini mani vasaya. All those who speak of, all those who listen to the divine, and all those jini mani vasaya who enshrine the divine within their mind, they are all pavit, not the ones who bathe daily. That's not the idea of pavitrata in Sikhi. So it's those who have the divine praises on their tongue, those who listen to the divine praises through their ears, those who are always immersed in the divine praises. Those are the ones who, according to the Guru wisdom, are pure. Kaha Nanak se pavit jini gurmukh hari hari thaya. Nanak says, and with that, preaching pretty much settles the debate that stay with those individuals are pure who Gurmukhi Hari Hari Tyaya, who in their Guru orientedness, who in their experience of, who in their lifestyle of walking on the Guru's teaching have connected with the divine. Those are the individuals who are pure or who have become. And with that, Guru Sahib settles the idea of who is really pure. So I don't think we need to repeat this idea. We have said that multiple times. It's essentially remembrance and awareness. This is actually said in a different way in Rara Sahib. We actually, repeat this Akha Jiva, Visra Mar Jao. It's essentially the same idea said in a different way. When I'm speaking, when I'm uttering the praises, I'm alive. We have no idea of heaven and hell. Marjivade, the question of Marjivada came, there is no heaven or hell for Sikh. If we are not in heaven right now, there is no heaven after death. Either we get that heaven right now, otherwise there is no heaven. Akha jiva, when I'm speaking on your praises, I'm alive. Visra mar jao. As soon as I forget you, I'm dead. Tahan pe kuntha jah kirtan tera. Where your praises are sung, that's where the real heaven is. We don't have this. See, everything has been turned on its head. Everything has been redefined principally. For us, heaven is where there is praise. If I'm connected, I'm with divine, and that presence is heaven for us. That's our idea for heaven and hell. So we are pure when we are connected, when we are divine like. Because we are divine like, we are connected, become divine like. That's why we are pure. Because we are broken, we are separated, we are in ego, we have duality, we have ignorance, we have a fake sense of having an independent, individual, physical, separate existence. That's why we are impure. And when that ignorance goes away and awareness comes in life, we become. That's our idea of purity. Okay, before we go do our last party, which is 18, again, two words we'll cover. Sahasa and Sanjam. Again, quite common words in concepts. Sahasa simply means it comes from sonship, which means sansha, the idea of doubt, skepticism. When there is ignorance in life, uh, we are skeptical, we are doubtful of things because there's no clarity. Ignorance brings fear and anxiety. So that's how you notice certain words have connotations and they have like a group of different ideas that are associated with them. And if you notice, there is a flow. There's actually a pattern here. There is a doubt. When there is doubt, when there is skepticism, you will have fear. You will have ignorance, because these are the sign of ignorance. And ignorance basically gives birth to fear, anxiety of the unknown, because we are uncertain about certain things. Uncertainty always brings anxiety and fear. So that's how Sahsa is used in Gurbani as well, in multiple ways. At certain places as thousands, as a figure of thousand, but essentially these two, primarily doubt and skepticism, and then in the second case, it's fear, anxiety, and worry. All right. So next word is sanjam. It comes from sanyam, Sanskrit, and sanyam basically means restraint. And the idea is of restraining your mind and senses from, you know, indulging uh, in material things, as opposed to an informed mind who has a very limited engagement with the world around them. The idea, but it's also used as to refer to, what is the solution to this? Kit sanjam, is there's it's used in that context as well. Remedy, what solution, what way to do certain things, what manner to do certain things, and in some cases, customs, rights, and rituals as well. So that's how sanjam word is mostly used, but primarily to connote restraint, you know, keeping our senses, our mind from, indulging in material things. Okay. With that, we do Pauri 18. Within the context of, who is pure and who is not pure, the Pauri, sort of tries to, contextualize the struggle of those who are trying to, develop a relationship with the Kalpa, but are not able to, make the mark for, whatever reason. Probably because, they are putting effort in the wrong direction. So the Guru explains that, that struggle, what is that struggle that people are going through, and suggests ways to address that. So it says, it starts with it's a problem statement. It says, karmi, it's basically defining the problem. Karmi sahajuna upja. When sahaja, sahasana jai. The idea of sahaj keeps coming back again and again. Word karam means both deeds or actions and divine grace. So we have discussed karam word has appeared as divine grace in the previous bodies. Here it means actions or deeds. So karam means both grace or actions and deeds. In this case, it's deeds. So it says karmi sahajuna upaja, equipoise sahaj cannot be found through simply actions. The word uses actions, but the connotation here is the idea is of ritualistic actions. Religious people, they are given formulas. Do this, your things will be solved. Do that, your issues will be solved. All those things where people deal with religion, and that's how faith gets a bad name. And it's not actually the faith that's at fault. It's the people who don't get what the real idea of faith is, and in their ignorance, they are basically devoid of the real, happiness, real pleasure, or real thing. They're not able to enjoy that. So, karmi sahajana upjaya, that by just simply indulging in or doing those ritualistic actions, without any meaning, you cannot really find that sahaj, that equipoise. There has to be real internal change in a person, which is explained later. Vrana sahaja sahasana jai. Without this equipoise, what happens? That this doubt doesn't go away. Nahajai sahasa kita sanjam. Doubt does not go away. Nahajai sahasa. Nahajai does not go. Kita sanjam by any means. Now, in this case, sanjam means not restraint. We covered the second meaning was manner, way. It's used in that sense. Without in any means, by any means, na jai sasa. Sasa doesn't go by any means. People have tried all different ways. Rahe karam kamai. Rahe here means literally also means stay, and otherwise also it means stay here. That people continue to, the idea of continuing to doing something. They, they continue to do different things. They're trying different things, different rituals, different actions, different formulas prescribed by their their mentor, religious or spiritual mentors. Nothing's working for them. And as a result of that, what's happening? Sahasa jiyo malin hai. Because of this sahasa, this doubt, you, mind or being is malin. It's dirty. And then the Guru puts a question. And if the mind is dirty because of this doubt, sahasa, kit sanjam to hoता जाए. How exactly sanjam again? By which means? By which way? To होता जाए. Can this mind, dirty mind, be cleaned? And the answer is in the next line. It says, Mananto, it's a very clear prescription. Clear. It's an action item. This is what you need to do if you need to clear your mind of doubt. And it is Manto, wash your dirty mind. How? Just wash your mind of corruption by Sabdilagam. Attach to the Guru's Sabad. Enshrine Guru's Shabad within. And thus, by virtue of attaching, pursue with Sue, where we covered it in the last body. Sahit Syu, both means with. Harsyu, with Hari, Rahu, stay, Chitalai, with your mind attached to or absorbed in the reliever Hari. That's how you remove this sansa. You wash your dirty mind, Chit, with Sabad Lago by attaching to the Shabad, and thus, by virtue of that, stay connected with Kalpa, the beloved. And that's how you get rid of this. That's how you clean your mind and get rid of this sansa. And Nanak says, Gur Prasadi, it's only through the Guru's grace, it's only through the grace of the Guru's wisdom that you attach your mind to Sabad Lago in the previous line. When you do that, Gur Prasadi Sahaj Ubje, equipoise arises intuitively, because now you have learned to stay engaged with the Guru Sabad, and you are slowly transforming your life. You are becoming Guru-like in my life. And with that, equipoise enters the life. Sahaj Upajay, he says, this sahasa, this doubt, ivajai, goes like this. This is how this doubt goes away, by basically attaching to or singing Guru's Bani, by attaching to the Guru's. So if you look at Gurbani, we may discuss its grammatical nuances, linguistic beauty. We might even debate, argue over whether this line means this or that. But at the end of the day, the reality is, the fact is that the action items, things that a person needs to do to transform their life, are pretty simple and clear and straightforward. There is no doubt about it. Sometimes we use these, non-clarities to, somehow evade the responsibility of changing our lifestyles, because our connection with the world around us is so strong that we're basically looking for excuses, and we use different excuses to stay away or continue with our current present lifestyle. What I'm saying is that, if you look at it, it's very old, simple Punjabi. It's a very simple language here, and it's repetitive. Guru saying the same thing again and again, just to engrave it, write it down in our heads, that it's not like a rocket science. If you really want to transform your life, if you really want to get rid of all your sufferings, all your pains, just know what the real cause of your pains is. It's your other love. And the only way to get rid of that other love is to connect with the Guru. That is the source of your happiness, your bliss. Once I connect with that, I'll automatically start transforming. Because if I focus, whatever I do continually, I become that. That becomes our habit. That's human nature. That's how nature works. And if we continue to do what asks us to do, that will transform our life, and we will become divine. So doubt is a hindrance, and doubt comes from ignorance. And the way to remove ignorance is to connect with the Guru Sabbath. That brings awareness. And with awareness, we connect with the divine and slowly, steadily become divine life. And that's how we invite bliss in our life. With that, today's session ends. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Questions, Manvinder?
Yes. So if anyone would like, we can, please feel free to add your questions to the Q&A. Perhaps I can start off this Q&A session as we wait for everyone to kind of gather their thoughts, type in a question. So something I'm curious about is the role of both metaphorical and literal singing and music that occurs at Anand Sahib. So I know you spoke about singing your praises, so I'm interested in the both literal act of singing and the music, especially rag, and also the metaphorical, if that makes sense to you. If I'm making sense.
Yeah. So a metaphorical way of singing something is, when it automatically happens in your mind. This idea of anhad we discussed. I'm just trying to, I hope I understood your question. So, this, I think, somewhere in the second or week or third week, this question of anhad came. So something when something becomes our nature, that's when that thing starts happening automatically, intuitively, without our consciously doing it. But in order for that to happen, we'll have to first transform our life. We'll have to start that reaction, and that reaction is actual physical practice of Guru Sabbath. We have to do that as a starter. Once we have done that enough times, that's when, though, probably, if we are sincerely doing that, that metaphorical, thing might also happen, because we have now actually become that we don't have to physically actually do that, but it's happening on its own, because we have reached that point where we have become that. We have become manifestation of that.
And then, so I'm also curious about what role does the literal singing play in the Gurdwara, is often what I'm familiar with.
Well, as the line said, it's just a way of cleansing ourselves. That's how we cleanse ourselves. One of the major issues, hurdles in human life is ego. Our sense of separation, our sense or our understanding of we being separate or having a separate, independent, eternal identity, which is essentially an illusion. So what singing does is, the idea is to submit to a higher reality, to convince ourselves that our ego is the real issue, that we are really small. So when we sing praises, I'm just trying to explain that in a technical way, that when we accept the existence of a higher reality, we are basically putting ourselves at a lower pedestal. We are accepting the fact that we are not that great, and in a way, we are trying to tame our ego. That's what Kirtan tries to do. One thing is, eliminate our ego, and at the same time, the idea is we become what we do continuously, repeatedly. That when we sing praises of the divine, when we continually sing praises of the divine, we become divine like, because we are basically seeking those qualities. And when we continue to sing of those qualities, we invite those qualities, we become a manifestation of those qualities. So those are the two major reasons I think we do kirtan.
Thank you. That was very helpful. It doesn't seem like we have any other questions, so I will go ahead and ask one more, and if there are none, then we can perhaps end a minute or two early. But my last question is a question that I've had kind of throughout this session and some of our other sessions that Sikri hosts. But as someone who doesn't read Gurmukhi, what does this do to our understanding of Gurbani? Perhaps you could speak a little of I know a little of it, but the Judeo-Christian influences on present day understandings of Sikhi because of the translation process, which you kind of spoke of today when you were speaking about faith getting a bad name.
Yeah, so yeah, it's essentially what happens is if we don't have a real connection with what we want to become or what would we want to be, what happens is we develop our own superficial understandings of things based on our own, pre-conditionings, our own surroundings. So, for instance, uh, Sikhs in North America or Western culture, celebrates Christmas a lot. I'm not saying whether we should or we shouldn't celebrate it. I'm just giving an example. In, as opposed to that, when you go to South Asia, specifically Punjab or the current Indian subcontinent, you'll notice that Sikhs are influenced by the practices of celebrations of the dominant faith tradition, which is the Sanatan tradition. So it always happens. One of the thing is, if you notice, is when we don't have that real connection with Gurbani, I might sound a little judgmental here, but pardon me for saying this. What happens is, when you read a few English authors, they think most of the people have this general understanding that Sikhi is very liberal and it's very rational. So if any question comes to that, the way they come to a conclusion or a solution is, what, Sikhi is very liberal and Sikhi is very rational. So probably this would be the Sikh take on this. I'm not directly trying to take an example of Judeo-Christian influence, but I'm just trying to explain that in general sense. For instance, it could be anything. I don't want to name them because most of the things that are coming to my mind are very controversial these days. I don't want to name them. So what happens is, because we don't have a real connection with Gurbani, because Gurbani is Sikh, our attitude isn't flowing from a longing of the Akal, but essentially a very intellectual, understanding of Sikhi, which is essentially what the previous party was saying. A lot of people are just talking. They don't really know, or they haven't really felt or experienced that. So when that happens, we basically use a rational mind, and love doesn't follow rational ideas. Sikhi is about love. And unless we connect with Gurbani, we will not develop that love. And our actions wouldn't be intuitive, but they will be based on the preconditioning, which are essentially rational ideas. And that's how it works against our interests. So it's very important. There is actually no other way of connecting with the divine in Sikhi without having that skill of learning Gurmukhi, learning the cultural contexts, the actual vocabulary, the symbolism, and that actual feeling of longing, which is conveyed or presented through different examples of a mother and a child, of a couple, in that specific cultural context. All those things. So yes, unless we have that connection, we will continue to get influenced by other cultures or faith traditions, which is not a very good idea. In the sense that we will not really know what real actual Sikhi is.
Mm-hmm. So kind of to end it off, perhaps quickly, we do have two questions from the audience that kind of relate. So Sukhjot K asks, so what is the difference between beautiful, quote, sounding kirtan versus beautiful feeling kirtan? And in a similar vein, we have another question. They say Virji mentioned links of Egoangar to sound and the creation of the universe in a previous session. Does the act of actual singing have any connection to connecting into the, quote, frequency of the divine? Sound does link to feelings. Any thoughts from Virji on this will be great to hear.
Yes, sound has a great effect on us. That's why music is so big. Music really changes our mind. So, so we are basically mixing multiple things here. Sound as music, in the sense of music, has a transforming effect. So in that sense, specifically Gurbani utilizes Rag to invoke a certain feeling within us. So you'll notice if the theme is very solemn, the idea of if it's conveying the idea of sorrow or separation, it will use that kind of a rag. So that element is there. But this idea of there's another question within that, which is, I talked about the idea of sound that exists. This is an understanding coming from the previous faith traditions. It's a popular understanding. Sikhi doesn't really necessarily endorse or reject certain theories. It's essentially a theory, which I told you. But it's more focused on changing perspectives and behaviors. So anything that helps you do that, it's fine. Otherwise, at the end of the day, they are just theories. So I was just telling you what already exists in popular understanding and how Gurbani at times uses certain vocabulary or certain ideas, pre-existing ideas, so that people could connect to a certain idea. Otherwise, people can't relate. That's just a way of the Guru to help people relate. And then the Guru redefines those ideas to a certain direction to tame or, channelize or inform people's behavior.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this lesson, for this 5th week in the Anand Sahib course. Thank you everyone who attended. Thank you for your questions, and apologies to those questions that were not addressed, both due to time constraints, and it seems like there might have been some technical issues, which we will look into. Please also note that a recording of this live class will be available within 24 hours. Tune in next week for the 6th class in this live course series.
I'm sorry, Malvinder, I just wanted, because there was a question I think I didn't answer.
Sure.
If I could just pick that.
Yeah,
So there was another question that asks, what is the difference between, I think, beautiful sounding kirtan and versus beautiful feeling kirtan? I think that question itself is like self-explanatory. I think that's where the role of rags comes in. Sometimes what happens is, people sing kirtan which are not, they sing certain shabads and tunes that are not prescribed tunes. Basically, they don't conform to the tune of the rags that shabad is specifically uttered or revealed in. So what happens is, so for instance, there might be a song, a sabad which is basically conveying the idea of longing or separation. But if we pick up a tune that is very pumped up, it might sound appealing, but it's not necessarily conveying or enhancing the message of that sabad. And that is very common within the Sikh circles, where people sing sabads in popular tunes, Bollywood tunes, or whatever melodies that exist outside of the Sikh world in Bollywood or outside. So that happens quite often. I think that's where the real difference lies, whether we are singing that sabad in the prescribed, because Guru has already given that prescription that this sabad needs to be sung in this particular rag. And the reason is this is conveying a specific feeling, and that feeling can be enhanced or be conveyed only through this tune or this melody. When we don't do that, that feeling is lost. But then people come to you and say, this sabad was so beautiful. Can you please teach me this tune? But the real idea when they say that it's beautiful or it's really nice is the tune, not necessarily the message of the sabad. So that's probably, I think, the difference between beautiful sounding and beautiful feeling kirtan is. When we actually go back to our traditional style of doing kirtan, that's when we will possibly move from beautiful sounding kirtan to beautiful feeling kirtan.
Thank you for taking the time to provide those details. And yes, sorry, apologies if questions were not answered due to time constraints and also, again, to technical difficulties. Just to wrap up, we are also hosting bi-weekly live webinars. Our next live webinar, Shahadat, we will be joined by Japman Kaur, Rupanpal Singh, and Santbir Singh to remember the Shaheeds of the Sikh Panth. Greatest among them, our beloved 5th Nanak, Guru Amardas Sahib. In this panel, we will be discussing the role of Shahidi that it plays in Sikhi, looking at it from the lens of Gurbani, history, and Sikh culture. Why are Shaheeds so respected? Are they given too much importance or not enough? Join us for a live Q&A webinar on Saturday. And lastly, Don't forget to tune into the Sikh Cast, a podcast produced by Sikhri, where we explore the various issues and events affecting Sikhs worldwide. Thank you for joining in. Today's live class will be ending now. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.